Welcome to the Solo Mo Show, a weekly podcast hosted by Corey O'Brien, the social media strategist at Heat and author of thefuturevads.com.
And I'm Adam Helway, CEO of the digital marketing agency Secret Sushi Creative.
Each episode, we discuss the intersection of social, local, and mobile. Our goal is to help you understand these topics so you can integrate them into your marketing and advertising. Today is March 6, 2012, and this is episode number 9. How's it going, Adam?
It's going all right. March 6th, otherwise known as Apple's Eve, iPad Eve, or something like that,
The
right?
day before iPad 3 HDS, whatever it's going to be called.
HDS?
Yeah.
Now they've added an S to it as well.
And the 3. Let's get it all in there.
I think it would be really goofy if they were to call it an HD, because, I don't know. I think it's funny if they call anything kind of like, Pro or HD or anything, because the bottom line is it's just bigger and better than the last one.
Yeah.
And how are they going to outdo it when they come out with the next one?
Yeah.
I mean, it's just going to
HD plus.
HD plus, right? It's just a standard step up from the standard that they've created. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, and they've established S as their go-to letter for when they don't want to give something a new number. So it would be weird to have the iPhone 4S out at the same time as the iPad HD. Just a lot of letters and numbers and things going on there.
Yeah, and I don't know. It all depends on what they consider HD. I mean, obviously it's going to have a Retina display, and I think for the average user, they're not necessarily going to understand what that means unless there's some really cool stuff that they're going to do that stands out for those beyond the tech scene.
Right.
That's why they were trying to talk about the Apple TV potentially, like some sort of new Apple TV that they've had a version 2.0 with a little black hockey puck. I own that. Do you own Apple TV, the newer version?
Yeah. When they switched to the black hockey puck, I definitely picked one up, and I've heard the rumors as well of an update to that or a spec bump. Maybe they'll call that the Apple TV S. Who knows?
Yeah, well, and I have actually the white one that looks like a Roomba that should be, running around automatically vacuuming, like, the vacuuming robot.
Right.
It's huge compared to the black hockey puck one, but I'd be a little perturbed if they came out with a 3.0 just to support AirPlay 1080p streaming versus the 720, because I know they're going to have. I mean, it's not a mystery that they're going to have like a full TV sometime. Probably what they've been saying is like by the end of the year.
Yeah.
And so I would think it'd be ridiculous to do a 3.0 kind of to bridge the gap, so to speak. I love AirPlay, and in fact, that's kind of the only big reason why I have the Apple TV now.
Yep.
You use it for your iPad and iPhone 4S?
Yeah, I use it similar to you, I'd imagine, mostly for AirPlay, though I also rent a lot of movies through it.
Are you willing to pay all that money for those movies on iTunes?
I mean, it's only... I found places where it's $1 cheaper. I think a lot of the movies through either Amazon or through YouTube are $1 cheaper. But for me, I dropped Netflix a while back, and partly it was just because, the Apple TV has actually a really good selection, and when I'd fire up Netflix, I just couldn't find the movies that I wanted to watch. So I don't mind paying a little bit of a premium, but I'm only paying it when I want to watch a movie. They're giving me a huge selection of movies, so I can always find something that I want to watch. And in terms of starting up and playing through smoothly, I've never had any issues with movies buffering and all that. So it's sort of a pay a little bit extra on a per movie basis for the convenience of it. And then if I go a month where we don't watch any movies, I end up saving versus something monthly like a Netflix. So for me, it makes sense.
So what made you decide to stop using Netflix?
The streaming selection just wasn't what I wanted it to be. It was a lot of older movies and real long delays on getting newer movies if they ever were available for streaming. And I wasn't about to pay for both streaming and the DVD when they split that and essentially doubled the price. And for me, I was one of those people that had a DVD sitting on my console for, months at a time that I wouldn't watch. So it was and again, the reason I like the Apple TV is I can fire it up and have a whole range of movies. You know, we'll have that discussion, my wife Erin and I, of do we want to watch a comedy? Or are we in the mood for something a little more serious? Maybe, you know, an older movie, and all those are available versus with Netflix. You're like, well, you know, a week ago we wanted this comedy movie and now we're in the mood for something a little more serious, but we got to watch this because that's what we've got in front of us. So,
yeah, I mentioned to you last time after the show that I got a new Vizio internet connected TV like a couple weeks back, and now it's got everything built in. You know, it's got Netflix, it's got Hulu Plus, it's got YouTube and a number of other things. And the only thing keeping me from canceling cable right now is because I have the basic cable. I just don't have enough time to go and have full blown cable to have all the channels and everything. It just doesn't make sense financially. But I do like the Discovery Channel. And so what I'm paying for right now really is to just have everything popping into my TV, all the HD channels for local stuff, and then Discovery Channel. Like, I don't know why Discovery Channel is tossed in there, because you would think that it'd be part of the next level up package. But I'm actually thinking, because most of the Discovery Channel shows I like, now they're the season, right after the season's done, it takes a month or so, but they're on Netflix.
yeah.
So I'm thinking about actually completely dropping it, because there's no reason to pay whatever it is, like, you know, $30 a month or something like that, just to have the local channels. And we can get the local channels if we have just an antenna.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, you know, and so I'm thinking about how to do that properly, but I don't think I'm willing to get rid of Netflix just yet. But I think with the new iPad, as we come full circle on the conversation, and the mirroring that it has and such, you know, that's the compelling argument for having an Apple TV. And obviously you really enjoy it because you get the content when you want, you get high quality, and it just does what it does. But at any rate, I don't really care if they come out with Apple TV 3.0. I'm just really interested to see if Apple pulls something very interesting out of their bag of tricks tomorrow and does something bigger than just say better camera and better processor and better screen. I'll feel a little bad buying a new iPad, because I've got one already, and this is my iPad 2, and I had an iPad 1, but it would be really cool to see them pull out something just really interesting, like maybe the haptic feedback, and show some interesting applications for it as to why it's cooler than just for pushing buttons on the screen.
Yeah. And I've, you know, been, as any good Apple fanboy does, I've been keeping up with all the rumor sites. And actually one thing that is kind of relevant to this show, actually, I think it was inside of iTunes. I'm not sure where this came through, but there was an option for, or a specific call out for catalogs in the App Store. And so what, you know, it seems to make sense that with this really high resolution screen, they would make a special category for all the brands that want to put their catalog up on the iPad and make that really easy to browse through. And, you know, I'd imagine the next step on that is making it really social, like we've seen with the Styled By website last episode, where, you know, people are able to tweet out images and pin things directly from these catalogs. So I'm not sure if that'll make an appearance tomorrow in the event specifically, but it sounds like that is definitely on the horizon, a nod to advanced catalog functionality for the iPad. So that'll be a pretty neat announcement, and you know, interested to see what companies do with that as an option for them.
So nobody bug us from 10 o'clock a.m. tomorrow Pacific time to about probably 11:30 or so Pacific time, right?
Yes, I will be conveniently at a doctor's appointment, having my tonsils taken out, so no one can reach me. It's going to be, I don't know how it's going to happen that those two lined up so perfectly, but
that's pretty funny.
And then following the iPad 3 announcement later this week, I will actually be heading off to South by Southwest. So,
you are going, huh?
Yeah, I will be. Got the nod this year that the company was going to cover it, as long as I brought back some good pearls of wisdom to share with the rest of the agency. So that's good. And you know, I think I had my fingers crossed that they were going to do what they did last year, which was announce the iPad and then create a special store just for all the folks at South by Southwest. And, you know, pretty much everybody last year that wanted one got one, because they stocked this thing full, knowing that there was going to be a ton of people willing to wait in line and buy their iPad. But from again, kind of looking into the rumors, it sounds like that's not in the cards this year. It sounds like there's going to be an additional week between the announcement tomorrow and when these things actually hit stores. So looks like I may have to wait until I return from South by in order to pick up the iPad 3 or whatever they end
Did you
up calling it.
so did you get one? Sorry if I missed it. You said, did you end up getting one at the pop-up store they had last year at South by Southwest?
No, I was not at South by last year. I was at South by the year before, and then last year was at home waiting in line to get my iPad 2 and saw that they had opened up a pop-up store for all the folks at South by, and there was some debate whether or not there were going to be enough, but from what I gathered, they brought a bunch of them. So I was like, well, this year I'm going to be at South by, so I can be part of that group that goes to this pop-up store. But we'll see. They may manage to cut the time from announcement to selling them down to just a couple of days, but I would be kind of surprised by that. It's more likely that it'll be 10 or so days between the announcement and when you can actually buy these things from the store. So.
Yeah, exactly. Well, speaking of South by Southwest, there was something that we had on the docket for last week that we skipped due to time, but I thought it was really interesting, and you put it back on the docket for this week as well.
I did. It's a combination of a couple of things that we've been talking about lately, so really thought it was interesting. It's called South by Survival, and it's put out by an agency, gsd&m, which is an advertising agency based out of Austin. So, every year they pretty much see a flood of advertising, marketing, brand folks. Everybody heads into Austin for South by Southwest. So what they did is they actually created a survival guide, which, interesting. They've got a lot of local knowledge, and so there's a lot of good stuff packed in there. But what really set it apart is that they built this survival guide using Pinterest. So they created a number of boards that range from everything from where to eat and where to drink to previews of the hotels, look at where some of the parties are going to go down. So really all the information that you'd want to get heading into this event in order to feel like you're up to speed and ready to go. And they've got, they did the traditional microsite for it at SX Survival, southbysurvival.com, but really all that microsite is a front end for their Pinterest boards. And then inside each of the boards, you can do the traditional Pinterest things. You can like it, you can comment on it, you can repin things. So I thought it was a really interesting way of taking information that, they'd probably be putting out anyways to kind of promote their agency, but utilizing this new and popular network of Pinterest in order to set themselves apart, and probably just gave some of their folks internally a chance to play around with Pinterest and test things out and see what was going to work well. But, made me wonder if this thing had just lived on a microsite, would anybody care? But as soon as you add Pinterest into the mix, suddenly people are sending the link around and they're saying, hey, you got to check out this cool site that this agency put together. So my guess would be they got quite a bit of good publicity out of this, and, well-deserved for jumping on the Pinterest bandwagon early and doing something really unique and different that I hadn't seen before. So,
well, and it's not even just about the attention it gets because somebody decided to do this on Pinterest, but the fact that it's on Pinterest allows it to be much more viral, right?
Yeah.
They've presented it in a way that can be consumed by folks who are not on Pinterest or who don't have accounts on Pinterest or have never used it before. It's pretty straightforward at what you're looking at and how to navigate it and use it. But they've placed it on Pinterest, and then therefore the community that's there, and obviously South by Southwest, especially the interactive portion, is primarily folks that are into technology and social media and such, and probably many of the current wave of new kind of early adopters, and we say that kind of with air quotes because it's been around for a couple years, but now there's this sudden wave of the social media folks who weren't paying attention to it over the last 2 years who are now using it. It gives them an opportunity to get in front of those folks have them share a lot of this content, especially because they're going to be at the event, so it's relevant to them at this time. And additionally, the company you talked about, the agency gsd&m, it's their Pinterest account, so they could potentially have a lot of folks connect with them directly on their Pinterest account as well. And so, in fact, it kind of inspired me a little bit. I'm not going to do the exact same thing, but it just kind of got me thinking about a few ways to do some of this with some of our clients. And there will be a couple of our clients actually that will be utilizing Pinterest a little bit more for similar to this fashion.
Yeah, and just looking at it right now, the first board on the site called The Weird, which, Austin is known for being a little bit of a quirky city, so they highlight a lot of those weird things. And it's got 1,900 followers. And when I first looked at this a week or two back, when it first popped up on the radar, it was, I think roughly about 100 followers. It was brand new. And so you can tell that it's got some pass along. It's got people checking it out, and, not hundreds of thousands of followers by any means, but those are 1,900 followers that weren't there before. And, as they continue to put out content, it'll help to promote their agency. So it's the start of a lasting relationship done by really tapping into an existing event. It seems like something that a lot of companies could do when they've got knowledge about a local area. So, just any type of event that's bringing a lot of people into your town, if you can share some knowledge about that town and say, hey, here's some great places to eat, here's some great places to go grab a drink after the event, that would be a great way to share some knowledge from your company and get people, provide value, but at the same time get people engaged in what you're doing. And, it's always good to put something out there that's helpful for a large group of people.
And just to also make mention of it, the whole entire page is actually somewhat of a hub. So although the main focus seems to be this very visual element at towards the top of the content area, which is related to Pinterest, it also has things down below like feeds directly from their blog, and and they're kind of encouraging folks to retweet survival tips and suggestions via Twitter and some other stuff towards the bottom of the page as well. So they created somewhat of a hub, a social hub. And of course, this is not at like gsd&m's website. They've created a complete unique URL for it, as Corey mentioned before. So I think good on them. It's quite interesting, and I'd be interested to hear what they think they're getting out of this as an agency, and what the overall results have been. Like you said, it seems like they've got, at least for like one of their boards here and one of their boards there, they've got a varying degree of response, but maybe at least a couple thousand folks that have been following the boards and spreading the word a little bit.
Yeah, definitely. And I'm sure they're quite busy getting ready for the actual event of South by right now, but I'll have to reach out and see if we can get them maybe a guest on the show and ask them a couple questions about how it went.
True.
So Adam, are you a Gilt purchaser? Have you ever checked out gilt.com and purchased anything from them?
I have actually.
Yeah.
I've purchased a couple things from them. I think I purchased something for my wife, and I'm trying to remember. I thought that I purchased something for myself, but I cannot remember what it is. I think the only thing maybe I did was just get something for my wife from there one time, but I haven't gone as frequently as I had in the past, but I used to go there probably every couple days and check out what they have. They just have so much merchandise going through there all the time because of the method of their business model, that I just don't have the time to go there every single day. But I think there's some pretty cool stuff. And what about you?
So I think I've purchased one or two things from them. I've been sort of a fab.com devotee lately, but Gilt was one of the first out of the gate and really set the tone for these curated content sites, and they're actually doing something interesting that may get you to check out the site once again, and that's partnering up with Klout. So Klout is something that we've discussed on this show here a couple times now, but it's a way of measuring the influence of users on the social web. And so it gives you a score of 0 through 100. And what Guilt and Clout are doing that's really interesting, in my opinion, is teaming up to offer discounts based on your score. So they're actually putting people into buckets. So they've got ranges of scores. 0 to 20 is one range, 20 to 40, 40 to 60, and so on. And then each range of scores gets a date where they get to go to Guilt and purchase something at the percentage discount related to their score. So, and I think today was actually the first day that they did this for scores 0 through 20. Anybody with a Clout score between 0 and 20, which basically means, everybody, if you just load up Clout, you're given at least a positive score of some sort, can go to Guilt and buy something at 20% off. And then tomorrow, if your Clout score is between 21 and 40, you can actually buy something at 40% off. And the day after, if you're between 41 and 60, you get it at 60% off, and so on, all the way up to the final day. If you have a score between 80 and 100, they're going to give you a free item from Guilt. You get it 100% off. And I thought this was a really interesting way of sort of rewarding people based on their influence, but making sure that everybody gets rewarded in one way or another. I think a lot of companies that I've seen at least use Clout as sort of a one-size-fits-all bucket, and they say, hey, here's our cutoff. If you're a 50 or above, you're part of our Clout group, and we're going to give you all the same reward, but it's kind of nice, so we've got to draw the line somewhere. But at the same time, for somebody who's really on the top end of that scale, they might not be as interested in that thing that you're also willing to offer somebody with a 50 Clout score, for instance. So with Guilt, they've said, hey, everybody's getting a discount, and a lot of people are actually getting really nice discounts. And for the people that are at the very top end of the scale, because an 80 plus Clout score is really hard to achieve. You're doing something that's causing a lot of people to pay attention. You're getting a discount that it's hard to ignore 100% off any site online, especially Guilt, where they've got a lot of unique products. So I think the idea of tiering out the rewards and basically the more influential you are, the higher your reward is. I think that was really interesting and smart of Guilt and Clout to do, and I'll be interested to see if other companies kind of follow suit. Any thoughts on this one?
I think I heard a little buzz about this a couple days ago, but then I got an email from Guilt today, or was it from Clout? From one of the two, talking about this, and I thought it was really interesting because it would compel me to go back to Guilt and make sure I pay attention to a couple things over the next couple of days and likely purchase something. They've already got their prices are already drastically discounted, but they're also all luxury items, and so they can be anything from fairly reasonable to very, very expensive.
Right.
And so for me, the only worry that I have here is that my Clout score is 60.
Oh.
And so with that said, I need to find a way to get 1 point up by the 9th so that I could jump from only getting 60% off to getting 80% off. But at any rate, that's the reaction you're getting from me, right? You make me. I'm want to go and purchase something from there now. I'm getting a percentage off. They likely want folks who have yet to go to Guilt to check it out. Brian Solis and I forget what the name of the conference was, Pivot. And they had a conference a while back ago that I think he's like the chair of it and so on, and he was a speaker there and everything. But this Pivot conference, they did something similar where when you came to the perks page, and I believe it's still up, funny enough, unless they finally kind of purged it out of the system. But they had it up there where, depending on your Clout score, you would get a percentage off of your registration for the conference.
Interesting.
And it was dynamic. So depending on what it was, it didn't. And in fact, the funny thing I found out, don't tell anybody else, was that when I think there was a form actually to say what your Clout score. Or no, that's what it was. It was. When you did it, it automatically was putting, I think, your Clout score into a URL and passing it as some sort of promo code. And so it wasn't that difficult to actually fake it and increase the number. and get, 75, 80% off of your ticket. But I found that was quite interesting where, an event like that doesn't really care for the most part about reducing the price as long as they're getting butts and seats.
Right.
And so using that method, they're able to drive traffic. They're able to hopefully get kind of a viral impact of folks spreading the word and saying, hey, by the way, you got a percentage off of this. You should really check it out. And the conference was probably right up the alley of folks who would normally be clout, aficionados and users. So to me, this is kind of like a step up from that. It's obviously much more kind of structured in a way. And they're touting it as the first time they've ever really done something like this. And it sounds like they're likely going to do it some more. And they even mention in the article that we have, I think that we'll probably put in our show notes that refers to this, that they actually are also targeting people that are niche influencers. So it's not just about what's your overall clout score, but what are the kind of rankings or ratings? What are you influential on at sort of a niche level? So they were looking at folks who were influential in parenting and others that were influential in fashion. And in fact, they were also looking for people who were influential in social media. And I don't know exactly how they're going to target those folks, if they're going to reach out to them and send an email, because part of the problems I see with some of the perks sometimes is that they have them on the perks page, but they don't always tell you that they're there.
Or if they do tell you, by the time you get the email, it's already been claimed by people who check that site on a daily basis.
Yeah, it kind of actually ticks me off a bit. I mean, I'm looking at the page right now, and when I went to it, it says, "Sorry, this perk is open to other influencers," and the tone of that is just a little awkward. And sometimes they have it later, like you said, when you go there, and it's like, "Oh, click here to claim it," and then you click it, and it says, "You don't qualify for this."
Right.
Well, it's like, don't show it to me. And so I think there's a problem with that model when it comes to the perks of, if you already know my score, don't show me something and ask me to claim it if I don't qualify, because it makes me feel, you shouldn't make folks feel like they're missing out on something. I mean, maybe that's what they want to do. Maybe they want them to pay more attention to their clout score. But for me, it's kind of like, well, then why have me go through all of the perks you have if in the end you're going to say that this one I don't qualify for, or this one is already all claimed?
Yeah.
Just take it out of there and remove it. But again, I guess they just want you to see what you could have got if you just worried about your clout score a little bit more.
Yeah, my guess would be that that's their motivation. They're saying, hey, look at all this cool stuff, and some of it you get access to, some of it you don't, but hey, there's obviously a lot going on here, so don't forget to check back, and don't forget to try to boost that clout score up, and maybe increase the range of things you talk about so that you could get included in something like this the next time it happens. I'm betting that that's not an accident that they leave those all open for everybody to see, but maybe it is. Maybe it's something they'll change in the future.
Nah.
Nah. Another partnership that came up, that this was sort of a late breaking story. I think I sent this to you, an hour or two ago, because that's when the news broke. But American Express and Twitter partnered up for something that, really, really interesting. I was sort of surprised by the timing. It seemed like a much cooler announcement than something you'd want to roll out at about 4:30 Pacific Coast time. So right when all the East Coasters are sitting down to dinner and not paying attention to Twitter. But, this was basically American Express allowing their cardholders to tweet out specific hashtags related to brands, and in exchange, they would get offers or rewards related to those brands. And a whole collection of really high profile companies were involved. They had everything from here. I'm trying to pull it up here. But all the big name brands that you would expect, the food companies, the retail establishments are all taking part in this. And it's an extension of something that we've seen American Express do through networks like Foursquare, where you can check into, they've sponsored a whole range of different locations, and in exchange, you get a credit back on your American Express bill at the end of the month. And I think it's really smart move on their behalf to kind of take advantage of the social media world, and it sets them apart from other credit card companies for sure. So Did you get a chance to check this link out, Adam?
Yeah, I saw the video. There was a video, and then there was the link itself. But I could grok what they were doing from the video, and I mean, I think it's really, really smart because they're really kind of embedding themselves into the platform. They're not just kind of riding off the surface of things in a kind of very superficial fashion. They're embedding themselves into the experience. And so they're doing the heavy lifting in order to make sure it's easy for the average user to jump in and participate, similar to like how you're talking about Foursquare. My wife's birthday was this weekend. I took her out. We tried a new place a couple towns away. And when I was there, I checked in on Foursquare and saw that it said that there was a special at the place that I was at. Unfortunately, the special was only for American Express holders. I don't have an American Express, but in looking at what they had, it essentially says, you get $5 off if you spend X amount of money or more. The way you get $5 off is by actually, syncing your American Express account with Foursquare.
Right.
And similar to what they're doing now with Twitter. And so in that case, they just simply say, look, if you check in here, we'll know you check in, and we'll give you $5 back, which is basically credited back to your American Express card. And I think this is genius. I think it's genius. It incentivizes folks like us who really jump on the social media platforms and use them to say, well, shoot, I mean, if this is going to give me incentives to like go to this particular place because I'm an American Express holder, or make me think about using the American Express because I frequent these other places that always seem to have deals for American Express holders.
Right.
Same thing with Twitter. If I'm talking about something that's relevant and they're something I like on Twitter, then they're saying, well, look, if you do that, then I think we'll find a ways with those brands that we're partnered with to help give you discounts. And American Express is likely the ones fronting the cash for those discounts in comparison to, say, the brands. I mean, I'm sure the brands have a say in this as well, but based on what they were doing with Foursquare, it's not like the restaurant that we were at was providing the cash, the credit.
Right.
It was American Express that was doing it as a way to incentivize you. And this kind of, in a way, almost evolves the whole, cash back sort of thing that some banks and financial institutions and credit card companies do when you go out and you do purchases like of gas or groceries or whatever, and they give you a percentage back. Now they're incentivizing you for action that could potentially also market American Express and market the partners that they are partnering with on all these platforms.
Yeah. And just to quickly run through some of those partners, just to give listeners an idea of the scale of this thing, just reading through them, we've got McDonald's, H&M, Century 21, Whole Foods Market, Virgin America, FedEx, the Cheesecake Factory, Sports Authority, Best Buy, Fast Company, Dell. So, we're really talking big name companies here. And what's interesting is the way that they are showing off all of the companies that are involved is they favorited the tweets that each one of these companies made to announce the discount. So when you're on the site that talks about this thing and you can click to view through all of the different companies that are taking part, it just takes you to a page, or it takes you to the American Express /favorites page on Twitter, where all of these tweets are aggregated. And this was part of why I thought it was really odd timing, because all of these huge Twitter accounts with massive followings, we've got Virgin America that's got a 69 cloud score, and we've got Whole Foods a 72 cloud score. So these really influential, largely followed, largely retweeted brands posted this towards the end of the day, where their post likely didn't get seen by as many people, likely didn't get retweeted. It didn't kind of percolate through the Twitter ecosystem throughout the day. So, I thought that was really interesting timing. The other thing that seemed really odd about this promotion to me is, I was a big fan of their Foursquare promotion because it was essentially automatic. It was tapping into an action that users are already taking. Basically, you just check into to the location where the deal is active, you use your card, and you get money back. For this program, you have to tweet a very specific hashtag in order to kind of load up your card with that deal. So I thought it was a little unfortunate that they're making people jump through hoops. It doesn't feel as sort of, hey, I just use this thing the way that I normally use it, and I'm getting these deals, and it feels good. It was more like, well, now I'm trading a tweet for, $10 off a purchase from this company. But, to their credit, they are doing something really interesting here. There were a couple things that I did want to call out as things that surprised me a little bit and wish had been a little bit smoother. But, using the Foursquare promotion as an example, I like you am not an American Express cardholder, but after seeing all these deals for the past couple weeks, I'm definitely considering getting a card for the, just for the reasons of using it whenever I see some of these deals. And now that they're potentially gonna be rolling out the similar type of program through Twitter, I mean, it's just all the more reason to want to get an American Express card and take advantage of some of these deals that they're putting out there.
Yeah, I agree. It'd be kind of goofy. It's kind of like they're just trying to position themselves as the go-to card for the social media generation, right, so to speak.
Yeah, and nobody's giving them competition. I haven't seen any innovative programs from Visa or MasterCard. They do the traditional, they've got ads out there and maybe say, hey, follow us on Facebook or follow us on Twitter, but I don't see them really looking to utilize these platforms in unique ways the way that American Express has done. So American Express, congratulations to you on being the card that's really understanding the social web and being willing to experiment with some of these platforms and try to give people a few dollars back in exchange for being the card that people think about when they're talking about credit companies online.
And if anybody from American Express would like to talk to us, we'd love to chit chat with you about how things are going and maybe some things that you've got going on in the future. And maybe Pinterest is next somehow. Kind of pick your brain a little bit about what's motivating you guys to do this. So reach out.
Yeah. And I guess, since we're talking about cards, maybe another thing to talk about real quick was the recent announcement from Square of a new Register app for the iPad. Did you get a chance to check out this announcement from them and look at some of the initial screenshots of the app, Adam?
Yeah, it is pretty awesome. I mean, I one of the things that I like about what Square is doing, and there's a lot of other companies that are doing this now due to obviously connected technology, such as mobile devices and just the internet in general, is they're like cutting out the middleman, right? So in Square's case, they're bringing to the small businesses. I mean, anybody could use Square, and Square essentially, for those that don't know, it is a little device that goes into the audio jack where your headphone jack is for your iPhone or for an iPad, even an iPod Touch. And you could use it actually to swipe cards, credit cards and debit cards to accept payments. And it has a companion application that goes on all these devices, and people can do things like sign their name with their finger to accept the payment and so on. And using just a data connection, it can do the whole payment process for you. So you could be out at the farmer's market or a flea market or something, and you just have connection through your cell provider, your data provider, AT&T, Verizon, or whoever it is, and you can run your credit card purchases right there. And you don't have to worry about having any sort of what do you want to call it? Why is the term escaping me? Merchant account or anything like that. In order to do so, you just have to have a Square account. So it's not only providing the software and the hardware, but it's providing the gateway and everything you need in order to accept purchases on the fly. And they were giving out these little devices for free initially, and they've been growing steadily. But with the new Register, or is that what it's called, Register?
Yeah, Register.
Yeah. They've created a more robust app and platform. I didn't get the time to check out to see what the exact comparison is between, say, the old Square application that they have in general. I know that they allow, for instance, you to very quickly and easily customize, for instance, your Register experience for yourself. So you could take an iPad and you can mount it on a little pedestal and be running this Square Register application and put the little Square device directly into the little audio jack. And you essentially can create this very, very visual touch register directly on your iPad, that everything from putting photos of the items that people are ordering so that you just tap it and it has the price, the whole 9 yards. And it's very intuitive, clean, and easy for the average business owner or small business to use. Again, anybody could really use it. The thing I found most compelling, though, was things like, for instance, analytics and being able to identify who the regulars were. So when you are a customer and you end up using Square, you have the option of using your email address to when you make a purchase. And so you can get your receipt, for instance, via email that has like all this information, and it's branded for the business that you went to, and also has sometimes, depending on the location you were at, a little map on there that says where you had the purchase. But they are identifying folks that have come there based on the email. I mean, as long as you have the name and you have an email of folks, you should be able to track it in the system. And so that's what it does, so that it can allow you to actually incentivize and reward those loyal folks that keep coming back and making purchases at your place. And the power of all that in there is pretty amazing. And you don't get, it's not like a web-based service where you end up having to pay a subscription fee. This is an app on your device. And the connection obviously is to transmit payment information. So just similar to like PayPal, you couldn't obviously charge a customer via PayPal if you didn't ultimately connect to PayPal and get it to where you're holding your cash or your money within PayPal. But this is just a straight app directly on your device. And you're only getting charged on a per transaction basis, similar to what you would get charged if you used any payment gateway. I think it's awesome, and their processing supposedly, was it this whole year, or was it a per month basis? Something like $4 billion has been processed.
Yeah, that was actually an official announcement by Jack, who's founder of Square. That was their estimated processing for the year. So they announced that their estimates put them at $4 billion worth of processing payments processed over the next year. And this is actually up from $2 billion just a couple of months back. So obviously growing immensely, seeing a ton of use, and driven largely due to innovations like Register, which is really making Square a no-brainer for any small business. One of the things that is really interesting, Adam, so you mentioned being able to get receipts from each of the places that you shop at. With the Square card case app, you can actually pay just using your name. So you use this card case app, it's a companion app to Square, and as a Square payee, I can put all my information in there, and then it uses the GPS information from my phone to actually tell this store, hey, this person is in the store. And so when I walk up and want to buy something, I just give them my name, and inside of this Register app will be all of the people who currently have the card case app enabled, within a fixed distance from that register. So they can just find my either my name or find my picture, tap on it, and it'll automatically charge that transaction to my account. And what this does is it enables these businesses to really build a relationship with these repeat customers, because it's somebody that's giving you their name, it's giving you their photo, you can see previous transaction history. So the moment somebody walks into the store, let's say you're a coffee shop, you might know, hey, this person for the last month, every Monday this guy comes in and gets a bran muffin. So before he even gets to the register, you can pull
He
that.
might have a digestive problem, actually, if that's what happens.
Yeah, so before, you could warn him about his digestive problem. No, but
There you go.
yeah, I guess that is true. So let's go with blueberry muffins. Let's say every week he comes in on a Monday, he gets a blueberry muffin.
All right.
Suddenly he's walking up to the counter and you've got that blueberry muffin already on the plate. You already know his name and you're saying, hey, John, thanks for coming in. This blueberry muffin's on the house because we know that you're a great customer and we appreciate you coming in all the time. Things like that weren't really possible with previous transaction systems and previous cash register systems. So I think Square is really providing a ton of added value. The analytics that you mentioned previously are a free feature that comes with the Register app. So it's not like they're charging you for that. They said, hey, we've got this data. We're happy to share it with you. And they said they might look to add additional features in the future that they might charge for. But right now you can get all of this data that you've either had to pay a ton for or just had no way of getting access to. So using our muffin example, you could see that, hey, on Monday through Wednesday, you're selling twice as many muffins as you do on Thursday, Friday. So maybe you just start baking less on Thursday, Friday, or ramp up your production on Monday through Wednesday. You can see, even down to the hours, you can say, hey, we're getting really busy between 10 and 2, but we've got this slow period from 2 to 4. Maybe we run a promotion that tries to get some additional people in here from 2 to 4 because we know that we just don't have the foot traffic that we're looking to get. So really a ton of added value for any businesses using Square. They're obviously innovating at a pace that no other company is really keeping up with. So if I want to start a small business just so I could use Square. It's that cool of an app. It's like, how do I get involved more with this thing?
I was about to say the exact same thing, quite honestly. I know, for instance, my brother, a while back ago, he started another small business on the side, and he wasn't aware of Square. And I had a Square sitting here that I just wasn't using. It just doesn't make sense for my business the way it is for what we do. And so he said, I need to think of a way to do payments when I go out with customers. Mm-hmm. And this was at a time when he was doing, essentially it was a carpet cleaning business. And so he was going out to people's residence and he was working with them there, working on their rugs and their carpets and everything. And he just wanted to be able to have them make the payment there. And it didn't make sense to ask them for a check. Most of the time they're not going to have cash. It's really a convenience factor, obviously, with that stuff. And so I gave him the Square device, and he had an Android phone, and he ran out and used it. And everybody loved it. Nobody had any issues. And in fact, he loved it as well. And so it just kind of makes you feel it makes you feel a little antsy sometimes when you're in the type of business you and I are in, where we're not really we don't have any need for the Square device on our day jobs. If it makes you want to almost go and create a booth at the swap meet or something just to try it out and play with it.
Yeah. And with, like we said, with them processing $4 billion a year, it's obvious that a lot of companies have jumped on board and they're not going anywhere anytime soon. So it's a company that you can really start to utilize and start to adapt your systems to using Square and know that a couple of months down the road, they're still going to be there and they're still going to be adding features to it. It also made me wonder, so Jack, who, again, the founder of Square, is apparently still doing double duty at Twitter. He puts in an 8-hour day at Twitter, walks down the street and puts in an 8-hour day at Square, and then I'm assuming passes out and does it all again. But it made me wonder.
It's a bran muffin and then passes out.
Yeah, he eats a bran muffin, passes out every Monday. It's a thing. But it made me wonder, at this point, Square might actually be making more money than Twitter is. So, we've been looking at Twitter for years now, and it's obviously really popular still, and people are using it, but they've been struggling with how to actually make revenue from Twitter as a service versus Square. Maybe not the sexiest company. They've put out these apps that get some attention, but it definitely doesn't have the consistent media attention that Twitter has gotten. But at the same time, they've sort of, secretly built up this cash machine, and at $4 billion, I think they're taking something like 2% of that. That's a significant chunk of change, and it's something that's growing. So just thought it was kind of interesting that Twitter gets all the headlines, but it may be Square that ends up being the better business a couple years down the road.
I completely agree.
Yeah. So no shortage of big news this week. I think the other thing that we wanted to talk about, because it's hard to ignore, it was pretty much everywhere. If you read any social media news source online, it was likely covering the announcement of Facebook timelines for Pages. The big one we've all been waiting for. This was, not altogether surprising. I think everybody knew that when they rolled out Timeline for individuals, it was only a matter of time before they brought Timeline to Pages. But I, like a lot of people, tuned in to watch the announcement, and I was pleasantly surprised by the changes that they are rolling out and some of the things that they did to really make it easier for brands that are focusing a lot of their marketing efforts on Facebook to both interact with their customers, but also kind of put their best foot forward. I think for a while, Facebook Pages were sort of a Wild West, and people could get on there and post anything they wanted to the wall. And as a brand, you kind of struggled with, do I leave that? Do I hide that message? Do I respond to it? What do I do? And you didn't have the ability to control the way that people saw your brand the way that something like a Twitter does, where it's not like every time somebody sends an message to that account, it gets broadcast out to all your followers. But on on Facebook, sometimes that was the case. People could post something on your wall, and then everybody else that went to the wall would see that message. So, part of their changes were the timeline itself is very similar to the way that users' timeline works. I think a couple of additions were the ability to pin something to the top of the page, so that keeps that update above all the others, regardless of if you post new information or not. They also added the ability to feature posts, which makes them kind of bigger in the timeline. They take up more space. They're visually more prominent.
Similar to what you can do with your own profile as well. Yes. Are there other features that got announced that I'm missing, Adam? I'm trying to remember back to what all was announced and what the big newsmakers were. Well, in addition to what you were mentioning earlier about whether or not something gets completely tweeted out to the public, they did add private messaging now.
That's right. The big.
And, so that one is actually pretty important for some brands, and it really depends on how folks end up using it. There's Facebook has had an issue, obviously, where folks want to go there in order to voice their opinion and to communicate with a brand, and if they're going to do it, if they're going to get their attention, the only real way to do it was to do it publicly on their wall, like you said.
Yeah.
And now they have a channel where they can have a private Facebook message directly with the brand, and so there's somewhat of an inbox on your page now, where folks can, voice their grievances or say that they really like something or follow up with something. So instead of having to take the conversation off of Facebook by giving an email, you can use Facebook now kind of almost completely as a hub where people can communicate right there with you and let contact you for whatever the reason may be. So it'll be nice to see how folks end up using that on their respective pages. I know that I've seen, for instance, clients that have had little contests and wanted to give out prizes, and they have to say, well, reach out and email us here. Well, for one, they're exposing that email address to everybody on the page.
Yep.
And two, they're taking people out of that experience, out of Facebook, which may not be necessarily critical, but it's always nice to just keep it all in one seamless interaction, right there on the site. And then I've seen others, of course, who have had issues with people complaining directly on the site, and they feel they're not being listened to, and they're repeatedly they keep coming back every day, voicing how upset they are about something. And although really it's up to the brand to just say, okay, well we'll address that, contact us here. Maybe that will diminish that a little bit if they can use these private messages as a place to do so. I think that'll only kind of squelch it a little bit, because those folks that are doing so are likely doing it because they want everybody else to see it.
Yeah, but I think, for me, this was actually one of the biggest announcements that they made. And, like you said, it was sort of the squeakiest wheel gets the grease, and so everybody went to the wall and they'd put something that was as attention grabbing as they could get away with, and then if you didn't respond to it within 10 minutes, they'd post another 4 messages and they'd give you another 10 minutes, and then they'd post as many messages as they felt it took to get noticed. And now that I think it's given people a more direct way of contacting the brand, I hope that user behavior kind of follows suit and people learn that, hey, I no longer have to carpet bomb the wall in order to feel like I'm getting noticed. I can now send a message directly to the page, and as long as brands respond back in a timely manner, I think it'll kind of reinforce that behavior. Brands now have the ability to hide messages. So if somebody does carpet bomb the wall, you can just select all and hide them, and it's like it never happened. So I think it gives brands a lot more control over the content that they're putting out there, and it allows them to handle one-on-one interactions in a one-on-one way instead of having to make every single customer support issue or customer feedback something that every other fan had access to and could kind of peer into. I think it definitely is beneficial to brands, and it seems like something that I'd imagine Facebook rolled out in partnership with some of their bigger spenders who were probably talking to their reps and saying, hey, look, I appreciate that we can build this community on Facebook, but I just don't have the control that I'd like to have, and we've got
communications, right?
And the communication ability that I'd like to have, and we've got these people that are really taking advantage of that fact by posting things they shouldn't be on the wall. So can we open up a more direct feedback mechanism the way that people have the ability to on Twitter? We've seen that behavior sort of exist where a brand will follow a user back and say, hey, let's DM about this instead of just posting this entire conversation out in the public space.
Well, let me ask you, and maybe I'll chime in after you here. What do you think are the top 1 or 2 things that folks should do now that this the timeline is available? And one of the things that we did mention is if you manage any pages at all for brands or businesses or any sort of entity online on Facebook, you will be forced to migrate over to timeline at the end of the month. But at the moment, you likely have seen that it's alluding to the fact that you should be moving over soon and you should be making things ready. So not everybody has done so yet. But what do you think, Corey, are maybe a couple things that folks should do in order to, now that they have it available to them?
First, I would say make sure that you get comfortable with all of the changes. I was even having a tough time recalling them all because Facebook definitely rolled out a lot of changes all at once. And so in doing so, they also put out a lot of really great tools. We'll include some of those in the show notes. A lot of reference materials and sandboxes where you can get in there and play around and see how the new things work. So I would say first off, just make sure that you're comfortable with all of the new options and what's available and what Facebook recommends that you do with it. I think making sure that both visually and update-wise, you're kind of telling the story that you want to tell about your brand. So with the new timeline cover image and with the ability to expand some of these timeline posts and make them bigger and more prominent, you can really go through and make your page more visually appealing, make it more branded, make it really ownable. And you can also go and backdate things. So for any company that's been around for a while, I think it's interesting that you can now go back and add significant events to your timeline. Maybe it's when you were founded, when you hit a certain financial milestone or a certain number of customers that you're proud of and want to show off. You can kind of go back and create that story of your brand that anybody that goes to your page can learn a little bit more about where you came from and probably where you're going.
I think the term that you're saying, story, is really important.
Yep.
And I think that's what Facebook tried to kind of surface when it came to providing the timeline for for personal profiles is they're trying to say, look, we've buried the old stuff and we've made it hard for you to do anything more than just kind of have a snapshot of the last couple of days here, if that. And now we've allowed you to kind of tell your story all the way from the inception. And they're doing the same thing for brands here. So I think that you're spot on with saying that, going back through and highlighting some of the things like when was the company founded and some of the other major things that have happened with the company, and taking a look at all of the old posts that have been exposed now due to the timeline and highlight them and call things out, by using their highlighting tool again, that just makes like photos and images and so on much larger and bigger. So they stand out as people go back through, the history of your timeline. If you look at the video that was on the page on Facebook that announced this whole new timeline feature, they certainly hit it home with the whole story aspect.
Yep.
They show, I don't know, it sounds like you probably saw that video as well, where they showed, I think, 2 or 3 different brands. I think it was a music act. They showed a company, I think, like a restaurant or a sandwich shop. That's what it was.
Yeah.
And they showed how these different types of brands essentially could really highlight their story throughout the week and the months and so on through the tools that they have. And to me, I mean, it's interesting because they're very, it's quite simple. It's very simplistic, really.
Yeah.
It's highlighting certain things. It's calling out certain things. It's putting something up so it's a little bit more visible after a while. But if you use it in this kind of subtle, simple way, and now that you've exposed everything in a much more visual, story-based, time-based fashion in its entirety versus in the past where everything, again, like we said, was buried, it could have some very elegant applications to it when brands get behind it and start using it in interesting ways. And so I would like to see how also people start to consume old content. Mm-hmm. Because now that all that old content is there, does that mean that people will suddenly be more apt to digging through previous content? How far back will they go? So what kind of reach and lifespan does content now have due to the fact that it's exposed more often, or not more often? I mean, it's exposed, period.
Right.
In comparison to the past.
Yeah, I had that same thought. I was like, are people really going to go back and, look as far back as the timeline will go and say, hey, let's see what the first post this company made was, or let's see what sort of events they've added to their timeline. So I'm not sure if Facebook's going to try to create some tools that make it easier for users to browse those backstories and get a feel for things. But, at least initially it'll be dependent on that user behavior that evolves. And as long as brands put out an interesting story, I wouldn't be surprised to see consumers go through and read some things and, ideally make it visual, include images so that as people are looking through, they can see things in addition to just having to read text. That seems like something that would be a good step for companies to take, is dig back in that photo archive and say, hey, what photos do I have that would show off the history of this company and how it grew and how it came to be where it's at now.
Yeah, and one quick thing to kind of end this part on, because I know we want to talk about something else big with Facebook here before we end the show. You can go over and you can actually change the dates of posts that you have that are up there now. And so whether or not that's useful to some folks, there may be some advantage to fine tuning their story, because now it's this timeline, right? It's time-based, so to speak, by going in and actually checking out stuff that you might want to have be a little bit more fine-tuned to a time-based storytelling of your brand for past content. May or may not matter, but that's one of those little subtle things that you wouldn't normally see as a significant change between the last version and this version.
Yeah, and the final tip that I wanted to make sure we mentioned, since we did talk about the ability for users to directly message companies, would be to decide how you're going to handle customer to company interaction on Facebook and then make that clear. So if you're going to try to direct people to direct message you and say, hey, if you post something on the wall, we may or may not get to it, but if you send us a message directly, we'll definitely respond. Make that known, make that obvious to somebody that visits the page, so that when they do end up on your Facebook page and they have a problem or they have any reason for trying to get in touch, they know the preferred method for doing so, and they know the method that's going to actually get them a response. The last thing you'd want is for somebody to end up on your page, post something to the wall, assuming that that'll get read and responded to, when you've made the decision to focus on people who send direct messages and kind of let the wall be on its own. So decide how you as a company want to handle that, and then make that known to people that visit your page.
Good tip. I want to make sure that we can get to the next thing about Facebook as well. You want to kick off that topic?
Sure. So along with their updated timeline for pages, they announced a number of new ad platforms and ad channels and ad sizes, and basically a whole bunch of additions to their Facebook advertising. And this I thought was interesting, and this was something that, even after digging into it a little more, I was still kind of learning things or still having things clarified. So the first of those was the ability to increase the amount of view numbers on the content that you're putting onto your Facebook page. So Facebook released a number and said that when you put a post onto your wall, it's typically seen by an average of about 16% of your existing fan base. So, I think we've all, at one point or another, heard about Facebook's EdgeRank, and we're familiar with the fact that Facebook is showing content to users based on how important or how critical they think that content is and how related it is to that user's interests. But it was the first time that I've really seen them put a number to it, and 16%, is kind of a surprising number. You think, well, hey, I've spent all this time building up this great audience, and hopefully everybody's seeing my content, when in reality, it's, less than 1 in 5 of your fans is actually seeing what you're putting out on that wall. But through advertising now, they're allowing you to bump that percentage up, and it sounds like you can bump it up to as high as 100% if if the spend is there. And this was something that, and I may have be misunderstanding this, but I was reading a couple of posts after the fact that said that this is something that's only going to be available to these higher spending businesses. So companies that are spending, 6, 7, 8 figures worth of Facebook advertising. It's kind of an added value piece that Facebook's throwing in there. They're saying, hey, you're spending a lot of money with us, so we're going to make sure that the work that you're doing on your Facebook page and the content that you're putting out there actually gets seen by these fans that you're acquiring through these ad campaigns. Did you see that same story, Adam? Am I making
they're calling them premium ads, right? So they're trying to differentiate the current crop of ads with at least some of these new offerings that they released.
Right.
So I know that there are some of them that they said they are rolling out first to the larger brands, and then they're going to trickle to the other folks. I'm not sure if some of these, but it would make sense that would be the case, that some of these stick with, folks that have a little bit more coin to put down on the higher end stuff, so that it's much more visible. I mean, they were the ones we were talking about using, they call it the, what is it called? Reach. They called it Reach something, basically, the one that allows your content to kind of be out there in front of folks much more than that 16% conversion rate that that you were just referring to, or not even conversion rate, right? I mean, they're just talking about 16% of your fans are seeing that content. They were saying that Ben & Jerry's, for instance, was one of the companies that was using it already and trying it out, and that they had seen a significant increase in the visibility of their content. So I think that those will probably be kind of relegated to higher paying Facebook advertisers, but there were a lot of those other they're trying to use some unusual real estate. Let's just say that.
Right.
Well, some unusual and some kind of, I think, that we were expecting them to eventually go to. And I don't think you mentioned this, but so for instance, their logout page. So they said that about 100 million people log out of Facebook and see the logout page of Facebook every month.
Right.
I don't know about you, but I don't log out of Facebook. But there's a lot of people that do. I mean, it's just barely an eighth of their user base, but it's enough, obviously, that it's a place that they felt placing an ad on would make sense.
Right. And
I don't know what kind of conversion you get there. I mean, maybe it's a different sort of content and a different sort of ad that they place there than they would internally, obviously, because you're not going to be logged into Facebook. You're not going to have the cookie on your browser that keeps you connected and available to like that piece of content. What were you about to say?
I was going to say this one, when I first heard the announcement, I'm like, the logout page, what a weird place to try to reach people. You're getting people as they're leaving Facebook. And then I read a blog post which clarified it for me, actually. Those 105 million people are probably not people like you and me that are logging into Facebook at their home computer. They just leave it connected because it's their computer. They know exactly who has access to it. What those 105 people likely are people that are using Facebook on public computers. So whether that's going to the local library, logging in through an internet cafe, something like that. These are users that are going to shared computers, logging into their Facebook account, doing what they've got to do, and then logging out. And so what this logout ad essentially turns that computer into is a Facebook billboard. So it's not going after the user who logs out and then comes back to the computer and logs back in. They're going after the user that logs out and then leaves that computer on for other people to kind of walk by and see. And so I think, like you said, brands that are using this are likely going to use it more as a brand building play. It's just another way to get your logo out there, but it's probably a way to get your logo out there on a screen that'll stay on that screen for a while, unlike a banner ad where somebody's browsing around and it's changing all the time. This is sort of branding that computer with your logo until another user comes up and logs back into Facebook.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it really, if you think of it, if you think of it as when you go to yahoo.com just before you're going to sign in for your email, I mean, Yahoo, for instance, has ads. They have display ads and such. So it doesn't mean because that person's not logged in that it isn't real estate that eyeballs are on. It's just used differently.
Right.
Because of course you're not logged in to the Facebook system at the time. But in addition to the logout page, it looks like they're starting to trickle and experiment by placing ads and trickling them into the mobile apps.
Right.
And that's a place that would be pretty obvious that would happen soon. Facebook with about 845 million monthly users, active users, they have about half of those folks, over 400 million of those folks are mobile users or you access Facebook regularly using a mobile device. And so that's going to be a pretty incredible platform, and I'd be interested to see how they leverage potentially location-based stuff. So geolocation and GPS when somebody's at a particular location, if they're going to factor that in, I think that would make sense. I've actually waited for them for quite some time to do something where when you're out and about and you're checking in and you're doing something that you could end up getting you could have offers. I mean, and that those are available too. Actually, I'll get to that in just one second. But you could have something offered to you based on location from pages that you've liked in the past, or even maybe pages that you've not liked yet, that you might be thinking about liking simply because they're located next to you. So kind of a discovery thing. And I just said this, but the offers are the kind of the last new wave of advertising options that they have available now that they're rolling out slowly. So essentially, it's something akin to here's a coupon that's available, or here's a discount for certain people. Claim this and use this at a certain location within a given amount of time. And I actually kind of looked past it. I didn't even notice that was part of the crop of these ads over the last week until this morning, actually, that I saw there was a restaurant that a friend of mine had gotten an offer on. It was something like get $10 off if you spend $25 or more over the next 2 weeks at this particular place. And it was the first time I'd seen one in quite some time, because they kind of had their old school ad offers that they had, similar to like a Groupon. What was that? The deals, Facebook deals?
Yeah. I think did they shut that down, or
yeah, they shut it down. Exactly. And so the offers to me feels like it's like still like deals.
Yeah.
But it's just, it's still different. I think the difference is that deals offers are more like discounts, whereas the deals are purchases you're supposed to actually make. You in order to claim it, you have to make a purchase right there. Whereas an offer is more like a viral discount. You see that you get 5% off, you claim it. It tells you how you can redeem it, and the action of claiming it actually spreads it to your timeline and shares it with everybody else. So that's another one of the new things that was just released with it.
Yeah, a lot of interesting changes. I think the takeaway from all this is that if you're a brand that's looking to advertise on Facebook, start with your goal in mind, and Facebook likely has an ad platform or an ad block that'll meet your needs. So if you just want to put your logo somewhere, this logout ad might be the trick. If you want to reach people on the go, they've got mobile ads now. If you want to create an offer, they've got offers. If you just want to do the traditional Facebook ads in the sidebar, they've still got that. If you've got a goal that can likely be met with online advertising, I think Facebook's goal is to have a product that they can match up with your needs and keep you inside of the Facebook ecosystem. So, I think unlike before where maybe they had one or two products and you had to kind of cater your goals to those products, it seems like now their message is, hey, bring us any goal that you've got online, and we've got a way to make that happen.
Yep, completely agree.
I think it's interesting to see them continue to innovate. We've looked at Google Plus and talked about that, but it seems like it used to be, hey, our point was Google Plus has done a lot of things that are very focused on the brand and makes it easy for brands to engage. And this seems like Facebook playing a lot of not only catch up, but offering things that you really don't see in other networks. And so I like that it feels like they've realized, hey, brands, are spending a lot of time and a lot of money on our network, and we maybe haven't put the best tools out there for them to optimize that participation. So now it feels like they've realized the importance of brands to their platform, and they're, catering to brands, and they're putting tools and programs and products out there that meet a lot of those needs as a brand. So, if you're not already, I would say take another look at Facebook and see if it meets your goals.
Yeah, and there are a couple other things that we didn't mention in regards to the advertising, and so I recommend that you take a look at the show notes that will be up on solomoshow.com after the show here, and you'll see that there's quite a number of options, and I think it'll be interesting to see how this kind of meshes with the new timeline that was released kind of at the simultaneously with this the new ads.
Yeah, definitely. Well, that sounds good, Adam. I think we covered quite a few things. You think we should wrap this one up, or?
This one is done. Put a fork in it.
Put a fork in it, huh? All right, well, that sounds good. So, as always, we want to thank the audience. We appreciate every one of the listeners out there. We're always looking to build the audience, but we appreciate the people that have gotten in there early and are listening to us as we share our thoughts on social, local, and mobile. So really appreciate everybody that's out there. If you want to get in touch with us, we can be reached in a number of ways. It seems like this list grows every week, but one of the quickest and probably the one that everybody's familiar with, Twitter. You can reach the show at Solomo Show on Twitter. That's an account that both Adam and I keep an eye on, so that's an easy way to reach both of us. Or if you want to reach us directly, I'm available at Corey O'Brien.
And I'm available at Secret Sushi.
In addition to Twitter, we've also got a page set up on Google+. So if you just search for Solo Mo Show on Google+, that should pop us up. And a new addition to the Solo Mo Show social media family, we've got a page going on Facebook. So if you search for Solo Mo Show on Facebook, you should find us there as well. Or you can just go to facebook.com/Solo Mo Show, and that'll take you right there. So we, would appreciate you connecting with us on Facebook, giving the page a like, and we'll try to put out some interesting content there. If you want to reach us by email, you can do so as well. We're available at solomoshow@gmail.com. So feel free to send us questions, comments, feedback, or, hey, just email us and say hi. We'd love to hear from you. As we mentioned a couple times today, we do include show notes with each of these episodes, and that is a place to find all the links that we talk about. So you can find those either on solomoshow.com or in your favorite podcast player of choice. Most make them available in one way or another, so just dig around. You'll likely find the show notes for each of these episodes. And then finally, we do ask that if you like the show, give us a rating on iTunes. That's a great way to let other people know about the Solo Mo Show, help us build the audience, and it's something that we'd really appreciate. So, give it a couple stars, let us know what you think about it, and help us to build the audience. And with that, I think we will call it a wrap and see everybody next week.
Take care.